Kestit had been staring at the same malfunctioning sensor readout for 18 hours straight, and her circulatory system was beginning to pulse an alarming shade of electric blue. The Silborn archaeologist stood motionless on the metal observation platform, her two large oval eyes fixed on the holographic display hovering in front of her translucent gray face. Behind her, through the grated walkway, the massive excavation stretched into darkness. Miles of dead human civilization that had been silent for 12,000 years until yesterday. Her whip-like tail coiled tighter around the platform railing. The reading was still there, a heartbeat in ruins that predated recorded galactic history. Still detecting the anomaly. The amphibious technician's voice gurgled slightly as he adjusted another piece of equipment, his moist blue-green skin shifting to a worried yellow-green. His bulbous eyes blinked independently as he checked his own displays. Yes, Kess's subsonic voice thrummed through the platform, her bioluminescent circulatory system pulsed faster, visible through her gray translucent skin like a stressed road map. Biocanner confirms organic activity. The readings are getting stronger. She had spent 6 months cataloging this site, 6 months of nothing but dead technology, fossilized furniture, and the overwhelming realization that her dissertation on minor pre-con convergence settlements was about as exciting as it sounded. The Archaeological Guild had already sent 3 messages asking if she'd found anything remotely significant yet. Now this 50 FT below, in the circular cryochamber, something moved. Kess's tail went rigid. Her eyes tracked the motion through the gaps in the metal grating. The ancient cryopod, the one they'd assumed was just another broken relic, was opening. Get the containment field ready, she said, her subsonic voice tight with something that might have been excitement or pure terror. Her circulatory system suggested terror. It was pulsing so bright she could have been used as an emergency light source. The pod's lid lifted with a hiss of equalizing pressure that shouldn't have been possible. Ancient mechanisms that hadn't worked in 12 millennia suddenly decided now was a great time to resume basic functionality. A human sat up. Kess's entire circulatory system flickered like a malfunctioning sign through her translucent skin. Every vein pulsed chaotic patterns of blue light. This was first contact with a species extinct for longer than most civilizations had records. The human looked around the chamber, squinting against the dim bioluminescent emergency strips. He appeared to be in his early 30s with messy brown hair and a damaged cryosuit that had somehow survived 12,000 years. Better than most modern equipment. Survived a standard work week. He rubbed his eyes, yawned, and reached for something on the pod's control panel. Don't touch, Kess started. But the human was already pressing buttons. Nothing happened. The technology had been dead for 12,000 years. The human frowned and pressed them again, harder. This time as if prehistoric equipment just needed more enthusiasm. Kess watched this with the growing realization that her career was about to become either legendary or catastrophically complicated, possibly both. Her tail uncoiled slightly, then coiled tighter. Her mind raced through first contact protocols, all of which assumed the species in question hadn't been dead for longer than most stellar formations. The human stood up, wobbled, caught himself on the pod's edge, and looked Up, their eyes met through the metal. Grating, "Hey," the human called up, his voice rough from disuse. "Where's the bathroom?" Kess's circulatory system went nova, pure electric blue, pulsing so fast she looked like she was vibrating. Her two large eyes blinked, once independently in perfect synchronous horror of all the profound first words she'd imagined from a resurrection of extinct humanity, philosophical insights, scientific queries, existential questions about the nature of consciousness after millennia of stasis. She had not prepared for bathroom logistics. She started, her subsonic voice faltering. "You are, this is pretty urgent, actually," the human continued, now looking around the chamber with increasing concern. "The pod has a recycling system, but I really don't want to use it if I don't have to." "How long was I out? Did the night shift forget to wake me again?" Kess's mind went completely blank. 12,000 years of linguistic evolution. And somehow they could still understand each other. That was either a fascinating anthropological miracle or the universe's cruelest joke. She was leaning toward cruel joke. Seth, the technician, whispered, his skin now a pale, terrified green. "What do we?" "Documenting," Kess said automatically, reaching for her recording device with one of her two arms while the other gripped the railing. Her tail had wrapped around her own leg, which was not helping her appear professionally composed. Human subject is mobile, coherent, asking about facilities. The human was now examining the chamber walls, running his hands over the dead core-like technology. "Wow, the backup lighting looks terrible. Did something blow during cryo? This stuff is usually way brighter." It hadn't worked in 12,000 years. The emergency strips were only active because Kess's team had rigged modern power to them. "Last month, Sir," Kess called down, her subsonic voice struggling to maintain scholarly composure while her entire body was screaming bioluminescent panic. "I need you to remain calm and found it." The human had located a small door panel. He pressed the activation button. Nothing happened. He pressed it again, then gave it a light smack. "Seriously? Even the bathroom door is broken." "What happened during night shift?" Kess exchanged a look with the technician. His bulbous eyes were wider than physically seemed possible. "We need containment protocols," the technician whispered. "Decontamination fields, medical quarantine. We need to contact Vaughn," Kess said, her tail finally unwrapping enough to let her move. "Get Vaughn and bring every scanner we have," and her circulatory system pulsed erratically. "And maybe a waste disposal unit." The technician scrambled toward the communications panel while Kess moved carefully along the platform, keeping her eyes on the human below. Through the gaps in the metal grating, she could see him now trying to pry open the door panel manually. "Sir," she called down again, "that technology is extremely old. I need you to stop touching things." And got it. The human had somehow popped the panel loose. He peered into the dark shaft beyond, which definitely did not lead to a functional bathroom. "Oh, that's weird. This goes down like 3 floors. Did we land on a bigger station than briefing?" Said bigger station. Kess's mind latched onto that. He thought this was a station, a contemporary facility. He had no idea he was standing in ruins older than most space-faring civilizations. Her mind still reeling from impossible biosignatures and functioning prehistoric technology tried to Formulate a response that wouldn't cause immediate existential collapse in humanity's soul surviving. Representative, the sound of heavy boots. On metal announced Vaughn's arrival. Von Thier, the Silborn security officer, was stockier than Kess, his translucent gray skin showing a circulatory system that was already bright blue before he'd even seen the human. His two large oval eyes swept the scene. The open cryopod, the ancient chamber the human currently poking around in a 12,000-year-old access shaft, and his entire body lit up like a distress beacon. "That's a human," Vaughn said, his subsonic voice flat, with the tone of someone whose day had just gone catastrophically sideways. "Yes," Kess confirmed, "a living human. Yes, in ruins that predate the convergence. Yes." Vor's tail, which had been cautiously loose, wrapped around the nearest support beam and squeezed. "I'm going to need authorization for this." "From whom?" Kess asked, her own tail mimicking the gesture on a different beam. "The species has been extinct for 12,000 years. There is no authorization protocol for this." Below, the human had given up on the access shaft and was now walking back toward the cryopod. He noticed them on the platform above and waved. "Hey, you guys, see where the rest of my crew went? And seriously about that bathroom situation, it's getting pretty urgent." Vor's circulatory system pulsed so bright he could have guided ships through hyperspace. "We need immediate quarantine protocols, full decontamination, medical isolation. That organism has been in stasis for—" "He doesn't know," Kess interrupted quietly. Vaughn's eyes swiveled toward her independently. "Know what? That it's been 12,000 years. He thinks he just woke up from a standard cryo shift." They both looked down at the human, who was now doing some kind of stretching routine, completely oblivious to the fact that he was the galaxy's most significant archaeological discovery in recorded history. "We need to tell him," Vaughn said. "We need to not make him panic." Kess countered. "First contact protocols emphasize. First contact protocols assume both species are alive," Vaughn said. His tail was now wrapped so tight around the support beam it was starting to bend. "This is— I don't know what this is. Resurrection, temporal displacement, archaeological miracle. It's bureaucratic nightmare," Kess muttered, her circulatory system settling into steady, resigned pulse. "That's what it is." The human had found a water dispenser panel on the cryopod. He pressed it. Somehow, impossibly, it dispensed water. He drank it, made face, and looked up at them again. "This tastes weird. Did someone change the filtration settings?" He paused, really looking at them for the first time, at their translucent gray skin, their glowing circulatory systems, their face structures that had no mouth. "Hey, are you guys Silborn? I didn't know we had Silern on this mission." "That's cool. I worked with a Silern engineer on my last posting, guy named Thrace something. You know him." Kess and Vaughn's circulatory systems synchronized in their confusion. Silborn had only been a recognized species for 3,000 years. This human was talking about them like they were established members of a galactic community that wouldn't exist for 9,000 more years. "Unless he's from before the collapse," Kess whispered, her mind racing. "Early human exploration. They had contact with our ancestors. The records were lost in." Kess, Vaughn's subsonic voice was very Quiet, very controlled, the kind of controlled that came right before complete panic. If he's from the pre-collapse era and he knows about Proto Silburn, then the timeline we've been working with is wrong. Kess finished. Completely wrong. Everything we know about first contact is wrong. Below, the human was looking around with increasing concern. Okay, seriously, where is everyone? And did we have a power failure or something? The lights are terrible. The bathroom's broken. The water tastes like it's been recycled through a moon colony. He paused, squinting up at them. Wait, you guys look really stressed. Your lights are doing that thing. What happened? Is there an emergency? Cass opened her mouth, closed it. Her circulatory system flickered through several shades of blue before settling on resigned, dim pulsing. Sir, she said carefully, I need to ask you a question. Sure, but can it wait until after? What year do you think it is? The human blinked. What? It's what did the briefing say? 2186. Why? Kess's entire body went dim. Even her tail stopped moving. Vaughn made a sound that might have been subsonic laughter or subsonic screaming, possibly both. Sir, Kess said, her voice absolutely flat. I have some news that you're going to find very difficult to believe. The survey camp Medical Bay was not designed for existential crises, but it was about to host one. Anyway, Miles sat on the examination platform, still in his damaged cryo suit, holding a data pad that Kess had given him. The data pad displayed the current galactic standard date. He kept staring at it like the numbers might rearrange themselves into something that made sense. Kess watched, his face with the detached fascination of someone observing a historical catastrophe in slow motion. Her circulatory system had settled into an irregular, uncertain pulse across the small medical bay. Vaughn stood by the door, his two large oval eyes locked on Miles, like the human might suddenly explode into temporal paradox particles. So Miles said slowly, you're saying it's been 12,000 years? Yes, Kess confirmed. 12,000. Yes, not 12,000 hours, not 12,000 days. 12,000 years, correct. Miles looked at the data pad again, set it down, picked it up, looked at it, set it down harder. You're messing with me. This is like new crew hazing or something. Pete put you up to this. Did Pete put you up to this? Kess's tail twitched uncertainly. Who is Pete? My crew supervisor guy thinks he's hilarious. Miles laughed, but it sounded forced. Okay, you got me. Very funny. The weird lighting, the broken equipment, the it's been 12,000 years thing, solid commitment to the bit, but seriously, I need to report to the bridge, and there is no bridge, Vaughn said flatly, his subsonic voice carrying the weight of 12 millennia. There is no crew, there is no mission, there is a dead city that was already ancient when my species learned to make fire. Miles stared at him, then at Kess, then at the viewing window where the massive excavation site stretched into the distance. Miles stood, moved to the window, and really looked at it for the first time. That's the colony, he said quietly. We were building a colony on Kepler 442b. Mining outpost, 300 personnel, temporary cryo rotation until the permanent habs were finished. He pressed his hand against the window. We were supposed to sleep for 6 months while the infrastructure team finished the power grid. Kess moved beside him, her tail coiling nervously through the window. The scope of the ruins was undeniable. Structures that had collapsed into themselves, technology overgrown with mineral deposits, the distant glow of other excavation teams, aliens of species Miles had never seen, carefully documenting what was left of his world. What happened? Miles asked, his voice very small. Cass's circulatory system dimmed sympathetically. We don't know. The collapse is the single largest gap in galactic historical records. Your species was beginning interstellar expansion, had contact with several proto-species, including my ancestors, and then she gestured at the ruins. Silence. Every human colony, every station, every ship gone within a span of decades. No records survive. No one knows why. Everyone. Miles turned from the window. Everyone's gone until 18 hours ago, Kess said gently. We believed your entire species was extinct. Miles sat down heavily on the examination platform. Kess watched the human information processing cycle. Denial, bargaining, confusion, and something that looked like he was trying to remember if he'd left the stove on before entering cryo, which was such a absurdly mundane concern that Kess's academic brain filed it away for later anthropological analysis. Okay, Miles said finally. Okay, so worst case scenario, everyone's gone. Civilization collapsed. I slept through literally all of history. He rubbed his face. What do I do now? Is there like a protocol for this? Vor's circulatory system brightened slightly. Yes, actually, quarantine protocols require a minimum 72-hour isolation period for any organism in stasis. Longer. Then he paused. The protocols were written for 20-year maximum stasis. I don't think anyone anticipated 12,000. We'll need to contact the medical guild, Kess said, her mind already spinning through the bureaucratic nightmare ahead, and the historical society, and probably the Council of Species. And can I take a shower first? Miles interrupted. Both Silborn stared at him. It's just I've been in cryo for 12,000 years, apparently, and I feel gross. Kess's tail went rigid. Of all the responses to learning, you were the last member of an extinct species. Hygiene had not made her list of probable reactions. Yes. Decontamination field should. Is that what that weird cylinder thing is? Miles was already walking toward the airlock chamber. I tried to use it earlier, but it kept zapping me because you didn't activate the proper sequence. Vaughn called after him, his subsonic voice rising in pitch. You can't just walk into a decontamination field without. Miles walked into the decontamination field without proper activation. Field immediately zapped him. He yelped, jumped back, then carefully reached one hand in. Another zap. He pulled his hand back. How do you turn it off? He called back. You don't turn it off, Kess said, moving toward him with her data pad. You input the decontamination sequence, which calibrates the field to your biological signature. And Miles stuck his whole arm in multiple zaps. He jerked it back, shaking his hand. Okay, that one hurt. Is there like a manual override, or stop putting body parts into active energy fields? Bourne's entire circulatory system was strobing with stress. I'm just trying to figure out how it works by getting electrocuted repeatedly. It's a learning process. Kess pinched the bridge of her face where a nose would be if Silborn had noses. Her circulatory system was doing things that probably required medical attention. Miles, please step away from the Decontamination field. I will input the proper sequence, and a voice crackled. Through the communications panel, survey. Lead KTR, you have an incoming priority. Transmission from the Archaeological Guild. Representative Shal Ari is requesting immediate visual confirmation of your report. Kess's tail went limp. She'd sent the preliminary report an hour ago hoping for guidance. Instead, she was getting Shalari, an Avon Guild representative known for his obsession with budget efficiency and complete lack of imagination. Put him through, she said, moving to the communications panel behind her. Miles was attempting to deactivate the decontamination field by pressing random buttons. Zap, ow, zap, ow, zap. Why are there so many buttons? The view screen activated, showing Shalari's iridescent feathered face. His crest was already raised in bureaucratic irritation. Kather, I've reviewed your report and I need you to understand that claims of living human subject are not appropriate for Guild communications. If you're requesting additional funding, there are proper channels. He's right behind me. Eating a protein bar, Kess said flatly. Shalari's crest flattened. Clear's throat. What the human? He woke up. He's right. Kess turned around. Miles had somehow gotten halfway into the decontamination field and was now stuck being zapped repeatedly while trying to reach the control panel on the other side, demonstrating why safety protocols exist. On the view screen, Shalari's beak opened, closed, opened again. That's a human, yes, a living human. Yes, eating what appears to be a 12,000-year-old protein bar. Also, yes. Kess's circulatory system had given up on stress and settled into fatalistic resignation. He found his personal storage locker. Everything in there somehow survived. Miles had successfully reached the control panel and was now pressing buttons at random. The decontamination field cycled through several colors, intensified to maximum, then shut off completely. Miles stumbled out slightly, singed but triumphant. Got it, he called, then noticed the view screen. Oh hey, are you in charge? Listen, I need to file a report about equipment failure. The cryopod timer was way off. The bathroom's broken, and this shower thing is super dangerous. Someone could get hurt. Shalari's crest had inverted so far it was practically inside out. Are you this? As he looked at Sess, how is he not having a complete psychological breakdown? I'm working on a theory, Sess said, watching Miles examine his slightly singed cryo suit with mild annoyance. I believe he may be in denial. I am not in denial, Miles said, pulling a E12000Y old sandwich in Tupperware from his personal storage container. I'm processing. He opened the Tupperware. The sandwich looked exactly as fresh as something that had been in stasis for 12 millennia should look, which was surprisingly edible. Vaughn's circulatory system went supernova. Do not eat that. Miles took a bite. Tastes fine. Little freezer burned. Maybe. Kess watched Vaughn's entire body pulse through every shade of blue in rapid succession. Her own circulatory system joined in sympathetic horror as Miles chewed thoughtfully, swallowed, and took another bite. That's a biohazard, Bourne whispered, his subsonic voice strangled. That's a 12,000Y old biohazard in your digestive system. It was in cryo the whole time. Miles said around another bite. Same as me, probably safer than your food. Honestly, no offense. Extreme offense, Vaughn said, his tail wrapped so tight around his own leg, it was cutting off circulation to his bioluminescence, creating strange patches. You can't just, that's not how. The contamination vectors alone, Miles. Kes interrupted, her academic curiosity momentarily overriding her horror. Where are the rest of your crew? Miles paused. Mid-chew swallowed. Oh right, crew quarters are down the hall from the cryo bay, section B, I think. Why? Kes's mind went very quiet, very still. Her circulatory system stopped pulsing entirely for 3 full seconds. Section B, she repeated. Yeah, the crew rotation schedule had half of us in section A, cryo, half in section B. We were supposed to swap every 6 months. Miles finished the sandwich, crumpled the 12,000-Y-old Tupperware and looked around for a recycling bin. Did no one wake them up either? Because that's a pretty major safety violation. People need to rotate out of cryo or the Vaughn, Kes said quietly. Section B hasn't been excavated yet. Vor's eyes widened, both of them at the same time, in fight into perfect synchronous horror. No, he said. How big was your crew? Kes asked Miles. 300 personnel total, so about 150 in each section. Miles had found a waste disposal unit and was trying to figure out how to open it. Why? Kes pulled up the site map on her data pad. Section B was flagged as low priority. Residential structures minimal technological significance. They'd plan to excavate it next year, maybe the year after. It was literally at the bottom of the funding request list. We need to go there now, she said. Absolutely not, Vor countered. We need to maintain quarantine protocols, establish contamination barriers, contact medical authorities. I know where it is, Miles offered. Helpfully, I can show you. It's like a 10-minute walk from here. You're not walking anywhere, Vaughn said firmly. You're a 12,000-year-old biological time bomb who just ate prehistoric food and keeps getting electrocuted. You're staying in quarantine. Can't really quarantine me if my crew quarters are in your excavation site, Miles pointed out. Like we're technically already sharing space. That's not how quarantine works. Vaughn's circulatory system started pulsing in patterns that might have been still profanity. Kes looked at her data pad at the viewing window showing miles of unexplored ruins at Shalari on the view screen, whose crest had completely flattened in bureaucratic horror. At Miles, who was now trying to figure out how the waste disposal unit worked by sticking his hand into it. Stop putting your hand in things, Vaughn shouted. Her 6-month survey was now a multi-year excavation of humanity's last survivors. Her career had just transformed from disappointing to historically unprecedented disaster. The Guild would send more teams, more funding, more oversight, more bureaucracy. She would never leave this planet. Miles, she said, her voice absolutely flat with resignation. Show us where the crew quarters are. Sure, Miles pulled his hand out of the waste disposal unit, completely unbothered by the fact that his entire species had been extinct for 12,000 years. Oh, quick question though, do you guys know if the cafeteria still works? Because I'm still hungry and that sandwich was pretty small. Kes's bioluminescent circulatory system didn't just dim, it gave up. The light faded to the barest perceptible glow, like a dying star that had finally accepted its fate. Behind her, Vaughn made a sound that definitely wasn't subsonic laughter but might have been subsonic resignation. On the view screen, Shalari's image flickered. I'm going to need to call you back. The transmission cut. Guess looked at Miles, who was now examining the viewing window with mild curiosity, asking if the rock formations in the distance were natural or artificial. Those weren't rock formations, those were collapsed buildings that had been cities when his ancestors were still learning agriculture. The cafeteria, she said slowly, has not functioned in 12,000 years. Oh, Miles looked genuinely disappointed. That's inconvenient. Through the viewing window, the massive excavation site stretched into the distance. Somewhere in Section B, 147 more cryopods were waiting. 147 more humans who thought they'd been asleep for 6 months. 147 more. Hey, where's the bathroom? Moments. Kess's career in archaeology had just become a career in resurrection management. Her tail drooped. Her circulatory system barely glowed. She looked at Vaughn, who looked equally resigned. We're going to need more protein bars, Vaughn said quietly. And a much bigger survey team, Kess added, and possibly therapy. Vaughn finished. Miles was still examining the window, completely oblivious. Hey, is that other dig site over there supposed to be there? Because if we had multiple settlement zones, that should have been in the briefing. Pete definitely didn't mention multiple zones. I'm going to file a complaint about Pete. Where's HR? Kess closed her eyes, both of them not to blink, just to exist in darkness for a moment before facing the administrative nightmare that was about to consume the next decade of her life. Miles, she said finally, I don't think Pete is available right now. Is he in Section B? No, he's been dead for 12,000 years. Oh, Miles processed this. Can I still file the complaint? Because the briefing thing still seems like an oversight. Kess's circulatory system flickered once, dimly, like a distress signal that had given up on rescue. She picked up her data pad and began drafting the message. To the guild, survey extension required. Estimated timeline 6 to 8 years. Discovered 148 living humans. Please send additional funding, personnel, and possibly psychiatric support. She paused, then added, also significantly more protein bars. Her 6-month survey had officially become her life's work. Miles was asking about where he'd parked his